Hotep family and greetings. I am Dr. Nteri Nelson. And for those who are new, I am a metaphysician, a clinician, and an educator, and co-founder of the Academy of Kemetic Education and Wellness. So once again, family, I am delighted to be here together in as one in this Sunday's Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Service. All right, so, well, fasten your seatbelts because we have quite a service today. So with all of this framing, the potency and the power, we come now to a potent and palpable example that embraces the battle of life and death, good and evil, light and darkness. And that is, as we look together and as one at the dilemma that the planet is facing now. We face as a planetary family, which is whether to vax or not to vax as a planet. Yes, family, the question is whether to vax or not to vax as a planet. What does it mean with this coronavirus and this whole campaign of vaccination? And so what frames and what brings us to this potent question is addressed first to the group number one. So the question for the non-vaxxers is, do we need to be as maroon holdouts, family? Do we need to be as maroon holdouts? Now, what does that mean when we use the word maroon? Well, definition of maroon, as understood here, is that Maroons are or were the descendants of Africans in the Americas who formed settlements away from enslavement. And they are often mixed with the indigenous peoples here. And we were already here as those indigenous peoples because Africans are everywhere. But so we mixing with ourselves, Africans and Africa and Africans who were already here in the Americas, and eventually evolving into separate Creole cultures. So here's the question for non-vaxxers. Do we need to be as maroon holdouts who have to wage a war, a battle, with the lighted temple, that which is us, this lighted temple, with the equipment that we have built? Where is our equipment? Here it is. The equipment that we have built, what? Both human and divine, so as not to become machine, automaton, and programmed. So that's question number one for non-vaxxers. Now let's stay with this before we go to the vaxxers. Okay, the next question. When we talk about machine, automaton, program, we have in our previous services talked about Elon Musk in his founding of this company called Neuralink, for example. And his company has created the first chip to be implanted into the human brain directly, which links to a hard drive, external hard drive or physical computer without a wire or cable, like as in Bluetooth. So these they have created these silicon chips that can interface with our personal neurons. And what he says is that we have the ability to do what the chips enable if we awaken our biology. Well, this is our biology, but so we have our work to capacity builds, you know, to as he's saying, to that these chips are enabling us to do, but we already have the capacity, and we need to develop more capacity. But here is this material intervention where he says we have the ability to do what chips will enable if we awaken our biology. And then he further says, quote, "If you can't beat the machines, join them. Let us become one with the machines." Well, this is the battlefield, okay? Because let's go on. And now, you know, everyone has, I would trust, has seen The Matrix. And in The Matrix, when you needed to learn something, you know, they had the port at the base of their skull and would physically plug into a cable and computer and download and learn these programs very quickly. And he says that we have the ability to do this through what are called mirror neurons. So this is what is within us already. And that these mirror neurons are responsible for this super learning and retention. Now, but what we need to consider is, you know, this movement of humanity that is human and divine back into this, or merging with the machine, or to become as a machine. And if this sounds far-fetched, just consider the following, because this is not far-fetched, because you know, it was during enslavement that this white supremacist materialistic consciousness left no options off the table in its campaign. Think about this, family, in its campaign to dehumanize African people. Just consider that. You're talking about merging with a machine, but we've seen this campaign before. This white supremacist materialistic consciousness that left no options off the table in its campaign to dehumanize us as African people. Remember, we are part of the kingdom that is human and divine. We have done the work through our this evolutionary process to be in our stand as human and divine. So when you talk about moving us into this kingdom of machine, we'll talk about that in a moment. But we have seen this campaign of this white supremacist paradigm to move us out of that kingdom of human and divine as African people. So what does that mean? What does that look like? We saw this. It's a pushing a return that we have seen in enslavement. It was a pushing a return of us as kings and queens, as human and divine. It was this paradigm was pushing us as African humanity into the animal kingdom, making us as beasts of burden, like the ox, like the mule, and breeders like cattle, pigs, and chickens. All right, consider that, family, that we have seen this paradigm try to move us out of our divinity, human and divine. Moreover, in that paradigm, we saw this paradigm pushing us as African to return to the vegetable kingdom. Because if you think about the kingdoms, as we have taught here, they are the mineral, they are the vegetable, they are the animal, they are the human, and then the the kingdom of souls, the divine. So not only do we see this paradigm pushing us into the animal kingdom, and of course, I must say at this point, just juncture, family, that there are those on the planet who have not even entered into the human kingdom. And I won't use this platform to even give voice or name, but you recall from the news media those instances and people that are fit examples of what I'm talking about and what they have done in their vile practices on this planet. They are not even in the human kingdom. Think about that, family. They have elected to be there on their own. And so, but this paradigm, this white supremacist paradigm has sought to push African people into the animal kingdom, and moreover, into the vegetable kingdom, because when you're pushed into the what is it to be a vegetable? You know, when one is deprived of their mental state, of depriving them of education, mental stimulation, ability to read, write, communicate in their own native language, or even in the language of their oppressor. Even if you could speak the language, you couldn't say what was on your mind because you weren't supposed to have a mind. So this paradigm, this supremacist paradigm, would push us into a kingdom where we had sensation like vegetables without and without mentation. Mentation is mental ability. It's the ability to be conscious and to use the mind. So we have seen this activity before. Let me just see if there's any questions. Let me just move here a moment. Sure. Okay. Yes, plants are highly intelligent and sensitive beings. Yes. The secret of plants. Yes, beautifully expressed. They're and that's what we have. We've already been there. Let me just see that comment again. Loving human being, Eker, excellent. Yes, we have already, we have acquired that. Those who are alive and attuned we've been through the vegetable kingdom. We have this exquisite sensitivity to know someone's need or pain, or we're alive, we're human and divine. And so we've already gained our mastery in this kingdom. And let me just see here. We have, let me just take a moment to just see who I might have missed in saying good morning to. Okay, okay, I see you. Paula, Rachel, might have missed a few. Okay, all right. So let me just go here. Wendy, okay, good morning. Oh, Bajra, Hotep. Okay, good to see everybody. All right, so we have 18 here. All right, wonderful. Okay, so I'm gonna go back here. I don't see any questions there, but beautiful comments. Oh, from Rachel to all. Hotep, everyone. Hotep, Rachel. Okay. Okay. So here we go. Okay. And so to the next group, those who have chosen, because this is all about making choice, as Heru in that battle And in your stand as Heru, you are called now more than ever to stand in your Heru to make the good and perfect choice. We all must make the good and perfect choice in how to proceed in these troubled times that we have been talking about. And so the question is, do we offer up our arm in blind faith to Big Pharma when we know, and hopefully we know, of the AIs or artificial intelligence's lack of regulation? There's lack of regulation in Big Pharma, but there's like no regulation, hardly any regulation at all in AI and artificial intelligence. You know, we know about the poor regulation even on the platforms of social media. There's just the food industry. There's just lack of regulation in how the planet is being polluted, lack of regulation. So the question is, do we offer up our arm in blind faith to Big Pharma? And moreover, it isn't just a one offering. It's to a regime of upgrades as variants and mutations are developed. And do we turn over our internal immune defense system to Big Pharma henceforth, furthermore, to regulate? What does it mean to turn over this capacity within ourselves of our immune defense and response to an agency external to ourselves? Yes, family, we, you, me, there have been efforts to dehumanize us before. And whichever group that we may belong to, vax or non-vax, whatever that group is, whichever group we may belong to, we have a duty to consciously and steadfastly monitor, investigate, and to see if there are evil actors with nefarious intentions to use this, I'm going to repeat this, but to use this already existing pathway to manipulate and control through these injections. I'm going to repeat that. No matter which group we may be in, we as Heru, standing in Heru, continuing in our stand in Heru, we have the duty to consciously and steadfastly monitor and investigate to see if there are evil actors with nefarious intents to use this already existing pathway, you know, and it's a pathway that is widening. There's an injection for everything now. You name it. There's a vaccine, an injection. This existing pathway to manipulate and control through these injections. Do we have to keep coming back to the line to be further injected? This is the time of great discernment and penetrating in the depths to be aware of the time that we live in. These practices of moving humanity, or as it were, African people, into another realm, shifting our realm out of human and divinehood into an earlier kingdom. This practice to alter and interrupt the course of humanity has happened before. They have altered and interrupted the course of Africa, India, Australia, and so on. And this assault against humanity will be the greatest at this time. And it'll be an assault, the greatest at this time, to make us what? Other than human and divine. This assault has the potential to rival the dehumanization of enslavement, to rival the dehumanization of enslavement in its scope and nefarious and evil intent. And we have the duty to verify. We have the duty to verify and to know the extent of the long-term, because we don't know the extent of the long-term injury of any of these practices. And the Big Pharma has absolved itself of legal liability to you, to me, to those who may be injured. So to stand in our Heru is that we must verify and take our stand that we are whichever group we may be in, that we want to live and die human and divine, not machine, not automaton. And we want to understand how this technology will be used. And of course, this material consciousness is a consciousness that has contributed to the destruction of ocean, forest, animal, the destruction within our, on the African continent, and the injury to African people. We have already been and continue to be witness of. So we stand in this battle, the battle of Heru. And so what does it mean to stand in our Heru? Let me see if we have, let's take a moment to see if we have here. Oh, Jeff, everyone. Okay, Rachel. Okay. All right, so we're in listening mode. All right, so let me just go back here. All right, so what does it mean to stand in our Heru? We have been talking about this in our service, and we are going to deepen our discussion about that today. But in order to stand in our Heru, which is, as we have learned, to stand in our Ab triangle in the linear tree of life, to stand in our Heru in the Merkaba energy body of light, is to be at the apex, to really be in our energy body of light, and to be radiating that light. But in our linear tree of life, to see how we got there, to be in the Ab triangle, it means that we are in our Ab triangle, we are coming more in rapport with our Ba triangle, which is our Sur, which is understanding. It is conscience and growing soul consciousness. So as we become seated in Heru, in our conscience and growing soul consciousness, not having our mentation shaved off like a brute below the diaphragm here, as this paradigm would have wanted to keep us. We are standing in our Heru, and we are becoming the seat of conscience and consciousness and growing soul consciousness. And so as that consciousness grows, Ab becomes Ba, Heru becomes as Osir, the fullness of the one true self. The son-daughter becomes as the father, and ultimately we'll see over here the mother, father, as the union is taking place between Osir and Oset, there is the Heru coming to the horizon or the apex of the Great Pyramid here. So, so we first have to understand what is Ba, what is Osir. So to stand in our Heru, family, just ponder, what does that mean? Who is Heru? Heru is within us. Heru, the divine trinity of Oset, Heru, and Osir is within us. This is what we have been learning in our Kemetic teachings. And so what is the work of Heru? Heru has to harness the will. How do we harness the will? What is the will? Well, we have to harness the will by at first tapping into the fire within us that is within the jet pillar, our spinal column. We have to, through our chakras, we have to raise that fire within us. We have to tap into the will and stand in the lion, the center of will, that creative intelligence. And as I've talked previously, we have to stand in that office within each one of us. In our constitution, which is both human and divine, has an office, just like the office of the president. And I'll refer to Obama. You know, you have a president in the office who was executing, who was in his agency and commanding and living in accord with a divine purpose and plan and intention. And that's where we need to stand in our Heru. We need to be in our office. But as we know, family, and as I have talked about, there is that where you look into the office, into the agency, into a being that is both human and divine, and there's no one home there. There's no livingness above the diaphragm that is in its own agency. And so harnessing the will, showing up in your office, your agency, not the external agency that you work for, but the inner agency on the inner realm that you are, you know, who are you employed by? Who are you ultimately responsive to? And even if you work in this external agency, who and what are you responsive to, an inner plane agency or this outer plane agency? Heru is how we stand and attune to the inner realm and the inner plane agency, those ancestors, that divine energy that is guiding us, that is bringing us into archetypal plan, purpose, and intention for our journey in this world, in this period. And so we want to stand in that inner plane agency and attune to that inner, but we have to align our will with divine will, because we can be out here on personal will doing our own thing, but it's when we make that shift that we raise the fires, that we are tapping into our Osirian power and Osirianization in consciousness. It isn't until we are here that we can even we're not even showing up for battle. We're not at our desk. We're certainly not poised for any battle with set until we stand here in our inner agency, attuned to divine will, love, wisdom, purpose, and plan. And then to stand here is to overcome death, because it's that shift where you are not just responsive perhaps to still an outer plane agency, but you're responding to an inner plane agency, and that you are at once on the battlefield. You're not even on the battlefield until you stand in your Heru to fully engage Set or Satesh. Heru is the sun. It is the constellation of Leo. And when we're in our positive qualities, our skill use as Heru, we are in that higher will. We are in that Ab soul. We are asserting the self, harnessing the will. And we're working to build an accord with the divinely intended design. Because we're tapping into that higher bar triangle that is revealing more and more the divinely intended design. We're not out here building a world that's whack or askew that design. We're tapping into the vitality. We have to have the vitality to be triumphant over Set. How do we do that? We have to stand in our Heru. And when we stand here, we're in the growing, unfolding conscience and consciousness, where we're having that radiant heart, and we're able to affirm that I and my father, mother are one. We are able to affirm that we are in that. We affirm that we are the glorified son daughter of spirit. We are son daughter of father, spirit, and mother matter. We were able to affirm that we are son daughter of father, spirit, mother matter that is within. And we are more and first and foremost in conscious participation in divine will, plan, and purpose for fuller life purpose. Now, when we are not in our Heru, we have a lack of conscious participation in the divine plan and purpose. So just think about that, family. How conscious are we of our divine participation? So please do put your questions in the Q&A, and go back. I'll go back here. Just checking to see. All right. So, so Heru, what is Heru? How are we Heru? Heru is intelligent will, asserting, striving, aspiring, achieving, creating. The assertion of will, it's overcoming transgressions without doing the same, working in accord with the laws of Ma'at to not transgress upon the one and the same true self everywhere, who is working to assert the same fullness of the one true self. What is the battle of Heru and Set? So this is where, family, I know you're very much in listening mode. And the thing here, family, I must make mention of in the time we're starting to have left, is that these teachings are going to take time for greater humanity to come to. I want to commend each and every one of you for being here today and in your listening mode. And I have said to my husband, I'll be an ancestor before folks come in large numbers to these teachings, because it is about a kind of preparedness. It is about taking one stance, and we have to first and foremost take that stance in Heru. So Heru, what is Heru? as we listen, Heru is the capacity building force to fulfillment of the one true self as Asur. So if this is Heru, there is a force we are capacity building to be as the one true self as Asur. We have Ab becomes Ba because we do the work to arrive as in the fullness of Asur. This is the hard part, family. It is resistance to containment, confinement, truncation, diminishment, separation. In other words, that Heru resists containment and confinement, that which would diminish it. It is force of will and reach toward greater expanse of light, love, and cohesiveness. Heru is the force of will and reach toward greater light, expanse of light, love, and cohesiveness. For example, one could be in prison and still be in there, standing in their Heru. Now you say, how could this be? Because they're in this confinement. Well, yes, there is confinement of that physical body in terms of how it may move in that bounded space. But if that being is standing in his or her Heru, they are moving beyond that bound in their reading, exercising their mind and body, getting mastery over their emotion, keeping the waters of Auset cleansed and not taking on the negative impressioning and imaging that would happen or would be the intention of imprisoning someone. Let us shift. What is Set? Set is darkness, death, drought, the desert, confinement, captivity, chaos, scatter, violence, destruction, aggression, disease, suppression of the will, transgressions, forceful and potent. It's indiscriminate sexuality. So listen, Set is the force field. Set is the force field countering the capacity building force of resistance to confinement, containment, separation, and reach toward greater expanse and light and love and cohesiveness. Let me give an example. So Set is the force. This is a force field of the ship of enslavement, where you have the captain and the enslaving slave catchers who are at work or set to work to resist the efforts of the enslaved on board and chained in their capacity building resistance to their confinement. Think about that, family. Think about the force, that Setian force on those ships of enslavement, that at every move that Heru would seek to make to gain the capacity to expand beyond the bounds, because what is our right as Heru? Our right is to assert the fullness of what? The one true self as Asur, without diminishment, without truncation. So that will asserts itself, that is within us, and as we harness it more and more, that is the will that was of resistance during our enslavement, and to move beyond that bound again and again and again in the renewal of ourselves, in the renewal of our will and our struggle. Okay, so it is Heru who attempts to overcome its bounds. As Heru is gaining ascendancy to the throne, and it is Set that attempts to hold Heru within these bounds and subdue him or her instead of itself being subdued or overcome. Set blocks our efforts to overcome our seeming lack or limits or limitations. Set wants to be master and claim what we have, what we as Heru have accomplished, and claim as what we have accomplished and we claim as heir to the throne. And it is Tahuti, which we have been talking about in our studies, that acts as the conciliator or mediator of this dispute between Heru and Set. And we see numerous passages by our African ancestors of how Set, also in her interventions and incantations and magical powers, is assisting Heru, and at some time has assists her brother Set in the understanding what all of that entails. So let me see where we are. All right, so we have been talking about how to stand in our Heru, how to stand in this eternal, what is eternal life? What is this livingness? This livingness is a subtle substance. It's found as we re-immerse ourselves within the noon, within the Milky Way galaxy, within the stellar substance of Sopdet, within the Nile. We are this stellar substance. We tap into this livingness within the present bound that this indwelling life resides. We tap into as we sit in these seats, we are tapping into this livingness of this subtle substance within the bounds that we now reside, and we tap into the livingness beyond this bound, which will become a formal bound that no longer serves the life. So when this bound no longer serves the life, we tap into the livingness of that subtle substance, that we may have livingness in a greater expanse and reach in light, because we are eternal. We are the ever coming ones. So we are at that time, family, and what I do want to do is talk next week. Oh, we have a couple of, let me just check these questions. Let's see. Linda, to harness the will, would that involve yoga, meditation, and a plant-based diet? Excellent, Linda. Ekur, excellent. All of the above and then more. And one of the things that I do in my practice, along with yoga and meditation and a plant-based diet, is I do a whirling practice, which is an advanced yogic whirling practice for the harnessing of tremendous energy and will. So excellently expressed, Linda. And Tim says, would it be correct to see Heru, the falcon, operating in both air, spirit, and ground? Absolutely. We are, Tim, we are terrestrial and we are celestial. We are human and we are divine. We have dominion both terrestrially and celestially. So what I want to do here, family, is, wow. You know, we need to be fully conscious, and we dare not sleep, we dare not slumber. Humanity is at its greatest test of all, whether this white supremacist paradigm in this deepening material cycle will seek to exceed the cycle of its descent, and not engage in go against the grain of reascent, and want to plunge us into emerging with the base metals and crystals, which a kingdom we've already incorporated, and yet and this is what we've made, and but we have had our grand rising interrupted previously, and planetary wide, and we have been in a paradigm in which we have seen that before. So we want to be, and there is the means. There is the means. We have seen the evil intent, and so we must do our due diligence so that we continue on the path of our re-stellarization as beings of light. And so as we are at that time, we look to see each and every one of you tell others about this work. We look to see each and every one of you next week, as you and I, all of us are called to answer, how are we standing in our Heru, in this Osirinization of consciousness, and how are we faring in this battle between of life and death, of good and evil? How vigilant are we in our pursuit of harnessing the will, that we may be in accord with divine will, love, purpose, and plan, and building a world in accord with the divine archetypal design. And to that family, it's been a blessing to be here with everyone today. I look forward to seeing you next week. Onk Uja Seneb. Peace and blessings. Peace. Folks are saying peace and blessings. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Appreciate your time, and beautiful. Thank you so much for the beautiful. Thank you. All right. Peace and blessings from all the chat. Most grateful for today's service, Nora. Linda, peace and blessing. Brittany, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you and your time teaching. Peace. Desktop, Hotep, thank you. Rachel, thank you. Onk Uja. And Wendy, also thank you. Peace. Onk Uja. And Andrea. Oh, okay. Hotep, Andrea. Blessings to all. Good to see you, hear you. Andrea, peace, peace. Right. So as folks are arriving, we just want to start by saying good morning. So this is where we immerse ourselves in our primal wisdom, our primal ancient African sacred wisdom. Why do we immerse ourselves here? As we are building the lighted temple, we are coming into this resonant field, this fount of all possibility, and tapping and immersing ourselves in this primal wisdom, because we need the most potent dose that we can derive for our healing, for our life, prosperity, and health in this world period that we are now in. And so today's wisdom service is entitled The Battle of Life and Death and Good and Evil, How to Stand in Your Heru, or Your Hero. So I sent out this flyer that everyone hopefully got announcing today, and so you would know what we were focusing on today. It is certainly very timely. And before going any further, I just want to say that following today's wisdom service, King Mindy crew, and perhaps Nora as well. Someone says Hotep. Let me just see these messages in the chat. Let me see. Desktop says Hotep everyone. Martha is the participant under the desktop. Okay, Hotep Martha, thank you for letting us know. All right, and so let me just see if I'm not sure if Minde is here. Let me see if he is here. Just check. All right, he hasn't checked in yet. But anyway, we do want to speak about his amazing platform, and we will be, he and I and Nora, who's on, will do some highlights, 15 minutes of highlights on this amazing platform that will follow our Building a Lighted Temple service. And why is this so important? Because, you know, on his platform, Ancestral Knowledge, and we hope that all of you are members on that platform, is that he has in excess of 128,000 members there. And we here in Building a Lighted Temple service, and having him as a member here and having invited us there to do highlights of what happens here, feel we have been invited to some very pristine waters, and in which to distribute and disseminate this vital knowledge and vital information of our ancestors. This brother, King Mende, you do an amazing work in how pristine these waters are. And we need the most pristine waters in which to have the highest vibration that this work may go forward. Because of the times we now live in, we must be within and among the highest vibration in order to build a lighted temple, which is us, and then distribute that light out into the world. So we feel very blessed to be not nestled in this very good and great company. The battle of life and death and good and evil, how to stand in your Heru or hero. And please do put your questions in the question and answer, or any comments in the chat that you'd like to make as we go along. We are in this battle, the battle of standing in our Heru. And today we will be examining the so-called metaphysics of life and death and good and evil, and how to stand in our Heru, our hero. And I showed you in this picture here, you know, you have the two heads on the one body of Heru and Set. And we're going to understand more about that battle as we go along today. So what frames our this teaching today. What frames this teaching today is, first and foremost, number one, that we are in our Kemetic New Year that has been heralded now by the sighting of Sopdet, later called Sirius by the Greeks, the star in the sky, the constellation that herald the flooding of the Nile, the symbol of rebirth and renewal in ancient Kemet. And so we begin our Kemetic New Year, not of 2021, but of 6262. And I also sent out these words as an invocation for us during this period. And I read this invocation, which is to really harness this energy of the flooding of the Nile, to know that we need and have access to this stellar substance for our renewal. And I read as following: like a newborn babe, I latch on to the life-giving stellar substance of Sopdet, Sirius, suckling that I may be renewed, every cell, fiber, sinew of my being. I am within, and as the drenching, nourishing, revitalizing of the annual Nile flooding taking place. Happy Wep Rempet Kemeta'u. Happy New Year, Kemetic family. This is the Kemetic technology for remaking ourselves as beings of light. So this frames our teaching today, the Kemetic New Year, our invocation in the light, that we may be nourished and bathed in this stellar light, which the flooding of the Nile is symbolic of. And then we move to our next framing, which is the Kemetic cosmology and cosmogenesis of the 5 Neteru. And I hold this up because we know now in our Kemetic New Year, this is also about the birthing of the Kemetic Neteru, the 5 Neteru. And so in our previous teaching, in our cosmogenesis and cosmic genealogy, we understood this diagram. But to highlight briefly here, we understand that it is Ra, who gives birth to the forces of Shu and Tefnut, and who in turn give birth to Gebenut, and that the children of Gebenut are our 5 Neteru, who are Osir, Heru, Kent, Ma'ah, Set, Oset, and Nebuchadnezzar. So this also forms and frames our teaching today. So you can see how potent and building today is. And as we look at the 5 Neteru, we see now and have the emergence of our divine, 3 of those Neteru, which are our divine trinity of Osir, Oset, and Heru, which we have talked about extensively in our Sunday service. And just 5 key points that frame our understanding of this divine trinity are as follows. And this framing is our story. It is what underpins the spiritual journey of unfolding consciousness. It is our story that we reference. And the 5 key points, even though it's a much longer story and we always go text, the Pertimru, the what would later be called the Neteru of the Kemites, or falsely called the gods of the Egyptians. So we turn to our primal text. But the essence of the story is that Osir and Oset harmoniously rule their kingdom as king and queen. And then Asur is slain by his jealous brother Set and cut into 14 pieces and scattered. His body is scattered. And this symbolizes the brokenness in consciousness and the brokenness in the human family. And the next, we understand that Set regathers the broken body of Asur. She's able to gather all except the phallus, and that it is Set through her incantations, her heka, her prayers, that she's able to gather, transforming herself into a swallow hawk. She's able to gather the essence of Asur into herself and conceives their son Heru, which would later be understood as that Immaculate Conception. And finally, the fifth element in the story is that a fierce battle ensues between Heru and Set, in which Heru, the son, must avenge his father's death and be restored as the rightful heir to the throne. And this symbolizes the reestablishment of the kingdom of God on earth. So, framing our story with all of that potency and backdrop now, and as we learn to stand in our Heru today, what are the elements of that? What are the further elements of being able to stand in our Heru, the son, daughter of Asur and Set? We have been in our studies, our wisdom service, understanding the time we're in, the spiritual implications of the perfect storm, the dimensional shift we're making from the materialization of consciousness into a re-spiritualization consciousness cycle. And we understand where we are in the vertex of this V as we make this dimensional shift, that we are just here in the hard, arduous uphill climb, and that we have, and that the shade is now starting to go up, and we see those early shards of light coming in, that which are bathing our earth in the spirit of renewal, this renewing and re-spiritualization, moving out of this materialization of consciousness cycle we have been in. But we are still in this shift, and this is the time we chose to incarnate, and we are still very much within the battle that is being raged between these contending forces, the material cycle and its contending with the spiritual cycle that is now dawning. So we have talked previously about how we have had and have been seeing this in this shift, where we've gone into the depth of the deepest materialization of consciousness, the full externalization of evil. And it's, the veil has been rendered, it's been torn, and we see the full externalization. For those who are awakened and see, we can see the full externalization of things, and particularly the externalization of evil right before our eyes. Because that long shadow, darkening shadow, is now being eclipsed by the light. So evil can't hide in the way it used to in this cycle that is now closing. It does seek to regather itself. Once the light is shed on it, it will try again to regather itself. So we are in this struggle to understand this battle of good and evil. And we are in the midst of overcoming this fear of death, because this has been very much a part of the cycle as well, instilling this fear of death. For our African ancestors, there was only the transmigration of the soul. We understood that we are the Jet Nehehe, the ever-coming ones, the eternal ones, always renewing and rebirthing ourselves. So we are overcoming this fear of death. To stand in our Heru is to overcome the fear of death. To stand in our Heru is to overcome death. And we must now be very active in this discerning of good and evil and understanding how to discern. We must be exquisite in our capacity for discernment. We also understanding how to tap into this life substance, this life-giving substance, this nourishing stellar substance. So we take opportunity with Sopted rising in the heralding of the flooding of the Nile. And we know that we can trace the Nile and the symbolism of the Nile and how the Nile is a symbol of nourishing humanity, nourishing our African family along the Nile Valley. And we tap, as we go further back to the source, we tap into the stellar substance of the Milky Way galaxy itself. And then we go and moving back, further back, we tap ultimately into the Noon, the waters, the infinite waters of space, the stellar mists, the pre-stellar substance from which our African ancestors teach is this stirring in the arising of Ra. So and that is our cosmic sun, our cosmic egg. So we understand our cosmic egg and beginnings. We understand our local egg, which is Ra on the horizon that we saw this morning. And we know that Heru was the son of Osir and Oset. So we want to understand first what is Osir, what is Heru, and then what is Set. And then later on, time probably not allowing, we want to understand what is PEP, probably next Sunday. But as we come into the Ba triangle and we understand Osir, we understand that Osir is an individualization of spirit. In order to be in the Ba triangle, we are all Ba, we are all Ab, and we are all Ka. But to be as Ba, a soul, we are an individualization of spirit. And so Osir is the one true self-realized beingness. Osir, when we are in our Osir consciousness, we are accessors to the fount of all possibility. We have the power to draw on the fount of all possibility. That is our unlimited supply and source. So we are the drawers of all power, all wisdom, all pervading presence. When we stand in the Ba triangle within us, we have access to that infinite supply, infinite substance. Ba or Osir is that individualization of spirit, of absolute spirit that penetrates into the dark depths of matter, then raises and redeems every aspect of itself back into pure spirit. I mean, that is the journey. That is the spiritual journey of unfolding consciousness that our African ancestors have taught us about. So we have unlimited access as Osir. And we are the knower. We are isness in allness within a to be circumscribed field of expression. Think about that, family. We are that isness and allness as we operate in this circumscribed field of becoming. And the Pertembru teaches us the gods of the Egyptians. I didn't mean the Pertembru. By Wallace Budge on page 122 teaches us the following about or Sir. He says, it says that we have no means of finding out what were the earliest conceptions about Osir, but it seems that he was originally a water spirit or a god of some arm of the Nile, a portion of the main body of the Nile, and that he developed later into a greater water god. So he was regarded as a water god, and rightly consider that he represented the creative and nutritive powers of the Nile stream in general and of inundation in particular. So this is what we've been talking about in tapping into this stellar substance, not only locally in the Sopdet Sirius rising, but ultimately within the noon itself. But we learn, moreover, in this same, from our ancestors, the natural opponent of Osir was Set, who typified death and destruction, and who was the god par excellence of the desert. And in various forms and told in different ways, we have the narrative of the contest between the powers of life and death, and light and darkness, and decay and regeneration, which appears in the religious texts of every period. This is so key, family, because it further says, in fact, Set was the opponent in every way of Osir, who typified, now think about that, Set is the opponent of Osir in every way. So whatever way Osir, and you'll see as Heru, comes up against, Set is the opponent of. And we read that Set was the opponent in every way of Osir, who typified unbroken rejuvenance of immortal nature according to the divine will and according to eternal laws. I'm going to read you that again because that's a mouthful. It says, Set was the opponent in every way to Osir. Who was Osir? Osir typified in every way unbroken rejuvenance or rejuvenescence of immortal nature according to divine will and according to eternal laws. Divine will and eternal laws, not man-made law, not personal will, divine will and eternal laws. This is our African ancestors teaching us. And what is this unbroken rejuvenance of immortal nature? And if you look up a definition of rejuvenance, it says the following: a renewal of youthfulness or vigor. And the synonyms of this rejuvenation are a reanimation, rebirth, regeneration, rejuvenation, renewal, resurgence, resurrection, resuscitation, revitalization, revival, revivification. So how do we stand in our Heru and tap into the power of Osir? Because we are the son, daughter of Osir. And we learn further on page 123 that the annual rise in inundation and fall of the Nile would be compared to the chief periods in the lives of men, and before the renewed rise of the Nile in the following year would be compared to man's or woman's immortality, which in Kemet was taken for granted from the earliest time. So that even the rising of the Nile symbolized this resurgence, this renewal, this rebirth in each and every one of us, that we would tap into that subtle substance. Osir possessed the power of regeneration, which expressed itself in the young Heru in every aspect. He was at once the symbol of rejuvenance, resurrection, and of life of every sort and kind, which has the power of renewing itself. So let me just take a peek here and see if there's any questions. Oh, two questions. Okay. Anonymous. Okay. We have an obligation not only to protect the human family, but to make sure that our next generation learn what you are teaching. Ekur. Excellent. We do. We certainly do. And Lester, he gives a thumbs up. Okay. All right. And all right. Beautiful.